Oh God, I remember you.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough. No, I. Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Donji Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie rant. And this movie rant is going to be for a series I have gone back to reviewing now that March is among us. A whole entire saga I'm still reviewing. I started around the start of the year, and this is the first one to start off the second part of it, Phase 2 of the MCU Infinity Saga. And what better way they chose to start this with 2013's Iron Man 3. The first bad movie of the MCU. How does this go? Well, Marvel's Iron Man 3 pits brash but brilliant industrialist Tony Stark, or Iron Man, against an enemy whose reach knows no bounds. When Stark finds his personal world destroyed at his enemy's hands, he embarks on a harrowing quest to find those responsible. This journey, at every turn, will test his mettle. With his back against the wall, Stark is left to survive by his own devices, relying on his ingenuity and instincts to protect those closest to him. As he fights his way back, Stark discovers the answer to the question that has secretly haunted him. Does the man make the suit, or does the suit make the man? How was this made? Well, following the release of Iron Man 2, a conflict between Paramount Pictures, which had distributed rights to certain Marvel properties, and the Walt Disney Company, Marvel Entertainment's then new corporate parent, clouded the timing and the distribution arrangement of a possible third film. On October 18, 2010, Disney agreed to pay Paramount at least $115 million for the worldwide distribution rights to Iron Man 3. With Disney, Marvel, and Paramount announcing a May 3, 2013 release date for the film. Iron Man and Iron Man 2 director Jon Favreau said in December 2010 he would not direct Iron Man 3, opting to direct Magic Kingdom instead. He remained an executive producer of director Joss Whedon's crossover film The Avengers, and served as executive producer of Iron Man 3. In 2010, Downey reached out to Shane Black, who directed him in 2005's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, to write and direct the film. In February 2011, Black entered final negotiations to join the project, and in March it was announced that Drew Pearce, who Marvel had originally hired for a runaway script, would work with Black on the script. And Downey even said that bringing in Shane Black to write and direct Iron Man 3 was basically the only transition from Favreau to a next name, and that Favreau and the audience at Marvel could never actually sign off on. And Shane Black described his take on the film as not being two men in iron suits fighting each other, and more like a Tom Clancy thriller, with Iron Man fighting real-world type villains. Drew Pearce even added that they would avoid magic and space, and Iron Man 3 would be a techno-thriller set in a more real world than ever, even the Avengers. The duo spent some time discussing themes and images and ideas before starting the script, and while writing, the focus was to avoid scenes of pure exposition, making every moment propel other narrative points forward. Some elements like the comics were used even if in different combinations, such as making Rhodes wear Norman Osborn's Iron Patriot armor and naming some characters with names from unrelated people in the Marvel Universe, like Eric Sevin and Jack Taggart. And the film's plot was influenced primarily by Extremis, the 2005-2006 Iron Man comic storyline written by Warren Ellis. The first two acts are main character-centric, albeit in Shane Black's words, more hectic, frantic, and large-scale, to fulfill its sequel obligations, with the third act going more over-the-top action to what Drew Pearce described as giving a sense of opera. The middle act was compared to Sullivan's travels and having Tony meeting various people on his journey, and the writers made sure to not make the characters too similar. The initial draft had Maya Hansen herself leading the villainous operation, with the Mandarin and Killing emerging as antagonists in the later version of the script. During one of the writing sessions, Pearce suggested that the Mandarin was a fake, and Black agreed by going on and making him an actor, which in turn Pearce details an overacting British stage performer. Even Black explained that he would be fool enough to declare that he is an international terrorist. Like, if you're smart, whatever regime you're part of, you'd put a puppet committee and remain in their house, what he said. And in turn, Killian would hide Trevor Slattery in his own frat house in kind of a drug-related house arrest to keep the secret alive. And both the opening and ending of the film were reworked in various ways. Like, first it would begin with a flashback to Tony's childhood, then like Iron Man, it would begin in medias res with Tony crouching in Tennessee before a voiceover that would lead to how he got there until it got changed in the final version. And for the climatic tanker battle, it was originally considered that Brent would show up in the James Bond tradition of the henchman coming back for the heroes. Instead, they chose to use Killian himself, and have Pepper, whom he abused earlier, cause his downfall as a way of poetic justice. The final dialogue was even written as that I am Tony Stark to be responsive to the first film's ending, but it got changed to I am Iron Man to enhance the mythical qualities. On setting the film around Christmas, Black even said that it was a sense that they're doing something on an interesting scale that involved an entire universe of characters, and one way to unite them is to have them all undergo a common experience. There was something at Christmas that unites everybody that always sets a stage within the stage. That wherever you are, you're experiencing this world together. There's also something that's just pleasing about it to him. And Pierce even added that he would have wanted to see a third Iron Man film set at Christmas, because when they're telling the story about taking characters apart, that's more resonance if you put it at a Christmas, and if you're also telling a story about lonelier characters as well. And that loneliness is heightened at Christmas. Mike even felt the character Harley Keener embodied the ghost of Christmas past for Stark. So after the film was shot and marketed, Iron Man 3 premiered at the Grand Rex Paris on April 14, 2013, and released in the United States on May 3, 2013, as the first film of Phase 2 of the MCU. It did receive positive reviews from critics, who praised the action sequences, Black's direction, and Downey's performance, but there was criticism, rightfully so, for its portrayal of the Mandarin. But the film was a box office success. It grossed over $1.2 billion worldwide, and was the second highest grossing film in 2013 and the 16th film to gross over $1 billion. It finished its theatrical run as the 5th highest grossing film of all time at the time, while its opening weekend was the 6th highest of all time at the time. The film received the Best Visual Effects nominations at the Academy Awards, obviously, and the BAFTA Awards. Not all reactions are good, though. Because as for my reaction to this movie, I think this was easily the first bad movie of the MCU. How in the hell is this even an Iron Man movie? This is hardly even that. Because first off, Iron Man is hardly in the film. It's just Tony Stark running around, traveling all over the world with no costume whatsoever to take down a threat, and nearly every other character or sidekick is useless. How could you go from 2012's The Avengers to fucking this? This is how you kick off the post-Avengers era of the saga? And this is your third and final outing for Tony's standalone Avengers? I'm sorry, but I don't like this idea. Like, Robert Downey's charismatic take on the character was the big reason the success of the previous movies in the franchise, and he still hasn't lost his charm. He delivers his lines as he can, but not at one moment the jokes became one too many. The movie derails from what it should be and becomes a comedy, and not in a good way. Most of the jokes are out of place in moments which should be dramatic, and thus the scenes cannot be taken seriously. This movie even starts off with a very good promise. A promise also given to us in the trailer. It was supposed to introduce Iron Man's toughest villain, the Mandarin, show us the state our world was left in after the events of the Avengers, and develop the Iron Man characters that we've come to love so very much even further. But no, instead, Shane and Drew decided to make a ridicule of the true Mandarin character from the comic book and gave us an uninteresting villain. Almost altogether ignored the consequences of the Avengers. That should have been an important issue, except for some hinted psychological issues Tony has that weren't developed at all, just like all the side characters that seem to exist just because they were in the prequels. But that's not the only issue. The biggest issue were the so obvious plot holes that defile the logic set up by the prequels and the Avengers, and that led me to believe that director Shane Black and co-writer Drew Pearce didn't even see the aforementioned movies before writing the script for this movie. How can these enemies melt the Iron Man suit if Thor couldn't even scratch it with lightning, which achieves much higher temperatures? How can the same people riff up parts of the Iron Man suit if Thor barely dented it with his mighty hammer? Ergo, Thor's... if it was so easy for Tony Stark to remove the shards from his bloodstream, why didn't he do it in the second Iron Man movie, when he was facing immediate and painful death from exposure to palladium radiation and so on? Like Iron Man 3, which is literally set a short time after the Avengers, and somehow Tony Stark is up to Mark 47 armor, yet Tony only has Mark 1 and Mark 7 on display in his garage and uses the new Mark 47 as his new daily drive. Mark 8 and Mark 46 are apparently stored in a secure sub-basement level below Tony Stark's garage, and all prototypes. Stark intentions for use of these 39 armors are never revealed, although there are some hints. Very poor hints, but hints. Nevertheless, 40 armors in the space of about a year? What the hell? He did quite well with Mark 3 to Mark 7 for 4 years, 2008 to 2012. To go from 7 in total armors in 4 years to building 41 in 1 year seems just unrealistic and stupid. The reason given is that Stark is paranoid since the events of the Avengers. Gods and aliens and threats of war from powers unknown to humankind plague Tony Stark's mind. He is losing sleep and spends all of his time building suits to suit different purposes depending on the kind of threats the Earth might face in the future. But it just makes no sense, as it appears since the Avengers that Iron Man has basically been retired by the Iron Patriot, War Machine or Rhodes, which also makes no sense. Like, where was Rhodes during the events of the Avengers? No reference for this was given. Why did the government feel the need to put such faith in the Iron Patriot program when it was Iron Man who led the defense against the invasion of the Avengers? And also, Iron Patriot is just a stupid name. Thank God it just never got reused again after this. And this installment just tries to match the humor and heart that made the original such a standout success, and it fails miserably with lame jokes that come way too frequently, and touching moments that just come off as half-hearted and insincere, amidst the never-ending barrage of pointless, over-the-top action scenes. Yes, even for the genre. The antagonists of this movie were even the disappointment. It seems as though the film's creators just tried to invent a new superpower for audiences that were becoming more and more inundated with superhero mythology, and while their goal was a commendable one, the execution was solely lacking. These new powers, which served as more eye candy than anything, just make absolutely no rational sense whatsoever, and can't even for the genre, and in the end they destroyed the willing suspension of disbelief which kept us engaging in a story. But, in my opinion, the ultimate failure of the film was the plot, as it comes completely unraveled and develops into an utter mess by the end of the film. I'll have to begrudgingly admit that I did enjoy one of the more original aspects of the story, which again, I won't go into detail here. In the end, it just wasn't near enough to stay what promised to be such a great film. And don't call this a comic book movie, guys, because this is not a comic movie. Why? Because the director's clearly no comic freak. Like, you can see it and feel it in each and every scene. There are more than 2 hours of film. Tony's in his suit for how long altogether? Like, 10 minutes? He's only in his suit for like 10 minutes. Yes, we get it. It's nice this movie just wanted to focus on Tony Stark, not his alter ego. But so did the first parts, and it was a comic movie in the sense of the word. This one is a comedy perhaps with good action sequences, no more and no less. And Shane Black is just not a good director. This was the guy who was in the first Predator movie from 1987, and then went on to direct some movies like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice Guys, which I did like. But sadly, he also went on to direct the 2018 piece of shit Predator movie. Yeah, the worst standalone Predator movie yet. That dumb piece of dog shit that should burn in a fire. Shane Black just does not know what to make out of comic book stuff. Because examples, the Iron Patriot is wasted as is the whole character Rhodey. The permanent changing of Iron Man armors to Tony is lame, as in the mind-controlled Mach 42, because it gets boring to see it flying around after the third time. And then, oh god, I don't want to mention this fucker. There's the Mandarin. What dumb hobo asshole at Marvel could approve to this twist? For crying out loud, which comic fan can possibly like it? Like, the Mandarin seemed like an intimidating antagonist just by his scenes, Ben Kingsley clearly made him look intimidating, and then comes this stupid twist. We'll get to that twist in a bit. This movie's just not about Iron Man being awesome. It's just about the drama on Tony Stark's life as he just tries to get over his near-death experience in the Avengers, which goes nowhere. And the film plays out like a drama, with a bunch of weak subplots pulling it from all directions. It's predictable at every step of the way, and it just never gets anywhere. Then you also have the dialogue. This film just strives too hard to be funny, and Tony Stark in particular is just throwing one-liners left and right throughout the movie. It works a few times, but more often than not, it just falls flat. In any case, you've got a lot of cliches again, especially when it comes to how Tony's inner struggle unfolds. Just weak and very boring. And then you got the action. There is a little more action in this movie than there is in the trailer. In fact, I'd say the trailer makes the action look a lot better than it does for the movie itself. The action scenes themselves are okay, but very few for an action movie. And the trailers sell this as a dark, almost Nolan-esque looking Iron Man, but it's not that at all. It's just a pitiful mess that doesn't know what it wants to be. There's very little Iron Man in this movie, and whenever Tony gets into a suit, it breaks down or malfunctions right away, and it suddenly feels like his tech is being manufactured on a boat somewhere. So basically, it's even worth noting that whereas Iron Man's suits were few and unique, this movie just goes through perhaps 15 of them, making them feel more akin to pairs of sneakers. And now comes more about the twist. Like throughout the trailers and film, you think the Mandarin is going to be Ben Kingsley's character. It's not. Nope. They probably do something probably before a lot of Phase 4. This is probably the most embarrassing moments of Marvel. The most embarrassing twist I have ever seen in cinema. It turns out Ben Kingsley's character is just some dumb, drunk, hobo loser who is useless and annoying, dresses like Eminem and a rapper, and just appears to make dumb humor or just act like a drunk, dumb idiot. You have Ben Kingsley in a villain role, and you just make him some dumbass acting hobo. What? Just shows how much of a useless comic book director Shane Black is. Our real Mandarin is this lame Syndrome knockoff named Aldrich Killian. Heck, this whole movie is literally a live-action attempt at feeding Incredibles with its villain plot. Even how it should have ended pointed it out ironically too. His Mandarin moment is even short-lived because he just gets knocked out by a somehow survived Pepper Potts in a final fight, who we actually do see fall into fire, but she somehow comes out alive and unburned, and not a single injury or scratch, not one, somehow got his powers. How? We never know, because it isn't explained at all. He just says, "I am the Mandarin," gets knocked to the side. What a great villain defeat. Wow. And there's more plot holes. Like, 1, why didn't they tie the Mandarin to the foundation they laid with the 10 rings from the first Iron Man film? 2, Mark 47 was an extremely unreliable unit for a piece of Stark tech. Why didn't he use one from the Mark 8 or Mark 46 suits as his daily drive while the Mark 47 was still in beta testing? What was with the power suit issues hinted throughout the film? Are these suits not powered by their own individual arc reactors? Is that not self-sustaining energy? This makes the whole Mark 47 storyline really quite stupid, ununderstandable, and weird. Bottom line, could Tony have not used energy from his personal arc reactor to an emergency type situation? So is with the hooking up the Mark 47 to freaking car battery to charge it up. And if Tony had 39 other suits just hanging around in lockup, why did he use the Avengers damaged Mark 7 to meet up with Rhodes for a meal? And another, why did he use a suit at all just to meet up with Rhodes? Doesn't he usually drive most places as Tony Stark? And why was Mark 7 just parked out there in the front, open? Couldn't anyone just hop in there and take off, or at least throw it on a trailer and nick it, or throw a rock at it? I don't understand why someone with Tony Stark's resources couldn't get all those suits out of the ocean sooner, like straight away. And I don't mind humor in the Infinity Saga, but the chance for a darker, more epic end to the trilogy was just missed, and we won't get that chance back, ever. And also, if Tony was so paranoid about further invasions and threats to Earth, hence building 41 suits in total in a year, why then destroy all of them on a whim because Pepper has a whinge about Tony not spending enough time with her? Priorities, Pepper, jeesh. and Tony letting a woman tell him what to do. And if it was so easy to take the shrapnel out of Tony's heart, why wasn't that done as soon as he was rescued in 2008? Why go through all the trouble of creating a better arc halfway through of the film? The palladium poisoning and a new element of core in the second film, especially considering from Iron Man 2 onward, all suits had their own independent reactors and didn't run off of Tony's anyway. So in theory, he could have done away with a personal arc a long time ago. It seems sorry. It all just seems like a gigantic waste of time and it's destroyed the credibility of everything that came before it in the first two films. How? We don't get fucking answers, because Shane Black would rather not give any fucks and just sit on his ass and probably gorge on McDonald's like yeah, gorging stuff in his face with fries all day filming this. And also, speaking of Pepper Potts herself, I find Pepper Potts so annoying and unlikable in this movie. Like, wow. Yeah. Probably the only movie where I really don't like Pepper at all. You could have just cut Pepper out of this movie. It wouldn't change a thing. If I can think of any good qualities of this film, I'll say these. The good, the acting, Robert Downey Jr. still is good, Paltrow, Pierce, Cheadle, and Co. fall not far behind. The best is Ben Kingsley, though, although his character is just no. I just want to mention the good here. Like, in the CGI, there are some scenes, two especially, which are groundbreaking. The attack on Tony's house and the rescue of the Air Force One passengers, and the rest is outstanding. The rest is pretty outstanding. And for the fun, some of the lines are hilarious. The British jokes, like about soccer, Downtown Abbey, etc., are refreshing. Robert Downey as Tony Stark at his best with humor again. And Robert and Gwyneth still do have good chemistry. Their chemistry is slightly better than the rude and mean chemistry they just had with each other in Iron Man 2. Like, it feels like the actually good chemistry they had in the first one again. Because I didn't really like their chemistry in Iron Man 2. They just kind of sounded irritated with each other throughout the whole second film. But yeah. Thankfully their chemistry was back to being good. But even with those, Iron Man 3 should not be called Iron Man 3. It should be called either Iron Pussy, Iron Coward, or just Tony Stark runs around doing nothing useful for the third and abruptly final outing, the movie. That's because this clearly killed the Solo franchise, and he only appeared in Avengers films and Civil War after this for his next story chapters. In the end, I strongly would recommend avoiding this movie like the plague and skip to either The Dark World of Winter Soldier instead to kick off Phase 2, because you could skip this and you would miss nothing at all. Anyways, that's it for my rant on Iron Man 3. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank Iron Man 3, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see the first fail of the MCU, then go ahead, but if you really don't, then please just avoid this movie like the plague for sure. And if you are wondering how I'm going to rank Iron Man 3, I'm going to give Iron Man 3 a 4 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for rants for Iron Man 3. And thankfully, I just also rewatched another weaker MCU film that's thankfully gotten better. That released after this. I think you know what that title is. You'll find that out in the next MCU review. Till then, that'll be it for this rant. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.